please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and
to the republic for which
stands
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the scheduled meetings of the Township Council established and adopted by Township Council, which schedule designates the time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We're using an electronic amplifying recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record. We request all those wishing to speak to be recognized and state your name and address directly to the microphone. The recording device will be still utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation of minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchison?
Present.
Ms. Grace? Mr. Mignon?
Here.
Mrs. Stubbs? Mrs. Winters? Here. Mrs. Strato? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Carlman?
Here.
Mr. Cardis?
Here.
Chief Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Chadwell?
Here. Before we go to the public portion, we do have an add-on. We ran out of the yellow sheets of paper, but is resolution 038, and that was asked to be put on by our solicitor, Mr. Carlmer. Mr. Carlmer?
That's correct. This normal appointment is the appointment for the Director of Community Development. Normally, the mayor makes these appointments at the reorganization. He was not ready to do or finalize this appointment at that time and requested that I present it at tonight's meeting. So, but it is the mayor's appointment. You know, under our form of government, the mayor makes the appointment and it's presented to the governing body for consent, and the position normally remains as a carryover until consent or a new person is appointed. This situation, we have actual resignation rather than someone in the position. So that's a resolution of consent that is required by council to formalize the appointment of Vincent Borelli as Director of Community Development, 4-year appointment under the statute for our form of government.
And that runs parallel to the term of the mayor.
It runs to the term of the mayor. That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Carlmer. We'll now open up the public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Mr. Polidoro. A reminder, each speaker is entitled to 3 minutes. We have a total of 15 minutes for our public portion. Mr. Polidoro?
Good evening, Council. Happy New Year.
Good evening. Happy New Year again.
I see that we are entering into an agreement with Inspira. And again, I'd like to thank all those that worked hard to bring Inspira in. However, I'd like to know if the township is going to hold the previous EMS service responsible and or any legal action for breach of agreement and endangering the public safety.
I'm going to let Mr. Carlmer chime in on that. I did see some communication with AMR responding to them no longer being the provider, but I'm going to defer to our solicitor because I don't want to say things that I should not
That's
say.
correct. I was going to, once you were finished, before Council President made a response to that, I was going to advise Council President not to make any comments on that because, you know, from, I guess, we were all working together for several weeks online and with the different organizations to try and put this together. AMR did a prior 120-day termination. They used up 30 days of that, with like 90 days remaining. We knew there was going to be a crisis, and which I think the facts showed that there was no way that they could perform over the holiday weekend, and what have you. And this was an urgent emergency situation to put together. We had their notice of termination already. We also had their notice that they were not going to be able to provide sufficient ambulance for that weekend. Chief, correct me if I make any misstatements. And we responded quickly and appropriately. They stepped up and agreed that they would be able to meet our demands for our community and in our shared agreement with Borough Pine Hill. So we noticed them. They responded. Their last paragraph of their letter, made a certain statement that I think is legal and probably appropriate. And because of that statement, it was a whole different question on their position, so I would advise council not to really respond to you.
So then I would ask you as legal reference to counsel. You said it was 120 days they gave the notice?
They gave their 120-day notice of termination, which is required under the contract.
They gave, if I'm right, they gave that notice from Gloucester Township on December the 10th.
Correct.
For some reason, they backdated the notice to Pine Hill to November the 18th, I believe it was.
Well, with
We
120,
had a meeting with them on November 17th, and we were waiting for them to notify us in writing of the 120-day contractual notice of termination.
okay, so with the 120 days and doing the math, well within 30 or 60 days, the reason I ask this is not just to pounce on somebody who breached an agreement and put the public safety at risk, is what do we do when we enter into these agreements with others to prevent them from going down this road? I mean, you know, like I said, you didn't see it in the news, you didn't hear about it, and you guys handled it, but there were some voids that were very crucial, and we have to make sure that that doesn't happen again. I mean, there's just, we don't even want to know what may have or could have happened on evenings that we didn't have that. The response time of 4-8 minutes as opposed to 21, 23 minutes is huge. It just is something that, even though, again, you did all the things that you need to do to provide that service, we need them to be responsible, that that's not going to be okay to do to a township, any town of any size. That was the point of my questioning that.
Yeah, our letter, you can't correct me if I'm making this statement, but our letter to AMR also declared that they were in breach. And we had noticed that they were continuing in their breach, and we had noticed that they weren't going to perform over the weekend. So we made combined letters to them, which declared a breach also. There's contractual terms that deal with that. But now our situation with Inspira is a temporary contract through this period of emergency when we had to move AMR out. And the administration is going out for RPR2, which we will be addressing, I guess, some of the things that come in and perhaps maybe some of the things that you were talking about. But right now, we responded to the emergency appropriately, and Township stepped up and performed for the residents.
Okay, and again, it's not about the township, it's about those that failed our township. I know I'm over my time, I'll give someone else a chance to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Is there anyone else? Mr. Heimball.
Pete Heinbaum, Morningstar Court. Evening. Also regarding the EMS, I mean that was interesting back and forth I heard, and I'm glad it was taken care of the way you took care of it during that void of time. The RFP that we're offering that was meant to fill in for, is that still in effect? Is that still, we're still taking bids? So this contract with Inspira is just through April 5th or thereabouts.
April 8th.
Yeah, okay. So we're accepting bids for the long-term EMS provider. I guess Inspira might be one of those bidders when it's all said and done. I hope it works out, and I hope they are. With that RFP, it looks like Gloucester Township's offering two garage kind of resources for whoever the winning ambulance service is. So there's one Woodshire Drive, which is near that building near the aerial firehouse, correct?
Garwood Road.
Yeah. And it says 2240 Stetzer Avenue. Is that Glendora?
Yeah, it's 236 Taylor.
Okay. Well, the RFP says what I just quoted, but that's that. Okay.
Actual,
So we're offering those facilities to the bidder. It's Inspira utilizing those facilities at this time.
I believe they're using.
Yeah, they're in both. They're in both now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Another agenda topic, and that's of the list of the non-fair and open contract recipients. Looks like one of those awardees, the lowest concrete, has given a political donation in Gloucester Township to the Mayor Winter Grace Hutchinson campaign in October of last year. So that possible violation of the non-fair and open process. So just wanted to draw that to your attention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Krug?
Evening, Council. Paul Krug, Blackwood Estates.
Good evening.
As others have said, I wanted to thank Tom and Chief for their hard work in replacing the emergency response with Inspira to ensure our citizens the proper service in medical crisis. So thank you. During the last meeting, Ray had requested, and I supported or seconded, a request that eGov questions pertaining to the consent agenda or regular agenda would be read prior to the regular or consent agenda and the council's vote. And Council President, you had suggested that that would be taken up at the reorganization meeting. Is it fair to assume, based on the layout of tonight's agenda, that that was voted down?
I set the agenda, and we voted on at reorg our order of business, and GTE Gov access, it will remain in place prior to the second public portion.
Okay. Were any specific reasons given as to why it was not moved prior to consent and regular agenda? I know I had just made the comment that it would be helpful for me sitting, in the citizens section. Oftentimes people's viewpoints help me, craft my own discussion points on consent and regular agenda items.
At times there are valid questions and concerns, and sometimes there are comments that are made to make a political point. For instance, when we talk about, I know I spoke at least at 3 council meetings regarding the cancellation of the events that we had in the month of October, Trunk or Treat, Pumpkin Festival, and the Food and Beer Truck Festival, or asking why the mayor showed up 4 hours late to an Erie Little League opening. No, I think it's good where it's at, and those individuals, we provide individuals the opportunity to send an email in and have that question responded to. They can't make the meeting, and afford them that opportunity, but it's going to remain where it's at.
Okay, understood. Just with regard to your comment, as someone who consistently comes to meeting, I can understand how the questions being reiterated could be frustrating, but a lot of folks are only able to meet or come to certain meetings, so it may be their first time hearing that question and your answer, just as a bit of perspective there.
Okay.
On the agenda this evening, council is going to review and likely approve the adoption of a temporary budget. And with my consistency, I know that it would be fickle to bring up budget at a meeting later into the year. So now would be a good time to begin to go over that. I just want to keep to the numbers this year. And last year I went 20 years back, 2 decades back, which I think is a fair representation. In 2001, the municipal budget of Gloucester Township was $15 million. Last year in 2021, that budget was $65 million. That's a multiple of 4.33, or in percentage terms, 330%. If you were to break that down on a per year basis, it's 16.65%. I think that it's time that we change that arc, which has been up only and to the right. The budget needs a serious overlook and addressing. and you've probably thought to yourselves over the last couple of meetings, Paul sure has been fixated on a 7-ton roller. Well, there's a reason I've been fixated on a 7-ton roller. It's because unless you want to take the dramatic action to cut personnel or take a serious look at insurance, then every smaller item needs to be viewed with a granular viewpoint. It's the only way we can stop the parabolic rise in the municipal budget. I would ask you to consider this and try to work towards it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Anyone else like to speak for Mr. Pablo? Mr. Pablo, your last speaker. You have the last 3 minutes. Excuse me.
Good evening again, Ray Polidoro from Ariel. The resolution 2201-031, I'm asking this question also as a lifelong supporter of law enforcement. It appears that this resolution will allow for what looks to be either the free use of or purchase of military and or defense equipment. By passing this evening, will this be a general blanketed approval of all things that the police department would be seeking to procure in defense equipment, or as items come forth and are made available, will they come before council and need an approval on an individual basis for a piece of equipment?
I believe it's a blanket statement from January 1st to December 31st, 2022. Chief?
That is correct, as I understand it.
And this
Okay.
runs the gamut from office equipment to exercise equipment.
The latest thing
First
that we
aid.
got was if you, sorry.
Yes.
The latest item that we got this past year was a reconnaissance robot that was military grade, bomb tech grade. We got it for nothing. Our special response team uses it for critical incidents and whatnot. So that's one item. That's the last item that we got. It was a value of, I think it was, I want to say $35,000 or more, and we have it for nothing. So.
Okay, and that pretty much answers my question. Just one quick request is when you guys are speaking, both up top and down below, I got 2 text messages that those that are watching the live stream cannot hear you guys.
Just one goes in, 5 minutes ago.
Okay, and that would explain that. Thank you again.
Thank you. Now we'll close the public portion. Consent agenda. Any council member would like to remove any of the items on the consent agenda, please speak up. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Minio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winter? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Just for clarification, then, the add-on resolution I presented became part of the consent agenda.
Oh, I was just going to add it separately as a
Oh, okay,
regular
that's
agenda.
fine. I just didn't know if you were.
I was going to have it individually.
Resolution 36, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Gloucester confirming the signing of an agreement with Conspira Medical Centers Incorporated to provide emergency medical response services within the jurisdiction of the Township of Gloucester.
May I have a motion?
I'll make that.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Minio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winter? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Resolution 37, resolution adopting a temporary budget for the Township of Gloucester for the year 2022.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
On the question, roll call.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Minio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Resolution 38, resolution of consent.
This is for appointing Vincent Borelli to Director of Planning and Community Development. Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
No planning.
Oh, excuse me, Community Development, I'm sorry. Well, my
Second.
old title. That's all right. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Minio?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. We have the two GTE Gov access emails. One from Maurice Chandler, 1485 Kearsley Road. Hello, I'm contacting you in regards to our desperate need of a snowplow for your tax-paying residents. We need a snowplow for us at 1485, 1489, and 1493 Kearsley Road. A snowplow doesn't plow us out, and we pay our expensive property taxes like the rest of the residents in Gloucester County. The request is on behalf of the residents who reside at 1485, 1489, and 1493 Kearsley Road. We would appreciate some help with this matter. The response from our Public Works Department is that the residents at 1485, 1489, and 1493 have a shared driveway. Their mailboxes are out on Kearsley Road at the end of the driveway. The township does not have jurisdiction to go. Shared? Okay, I'm going to get to that, Mr. Carter.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay. The township does not have any jurisdiction to go into a resident's private driveway to remove snow. Let's make sure we have that sent back to Mr. Maurice. Next is from Denise Coyne from 1062 Zane Road, Gloucester Township. Will you be hiring a director of community development to replace Ken Lechner? If not, why? Yes, we're hiring. Vince Burley was appointed this evening. We'll now open up our second public portion. This is for any item. Each speaker is entitled to 5 minutes. There's a maximum of 30 minutes for this public portion. Anyone wish to speak, please raise your hand. Mr. Burns.
Good evening, Council. Brian Burns, 5 Slowood Drive Aerial.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I just wanted to check with Mr. Carlemere. I have been in contact with the property owners Hayes and Marys, who indicated to me that they signed the agreement and returned them to you.
I have not seen them. They have not been presented to me. I would anticipate probably if there was no changes, they signed them as they were. They would be going through the administration out for signing back to them. But I have not had them presented to me. I just saw an email from the department that they were in agreement, but I haven't seen the agreement signed.
All right, well, assuming that the agreement is in, what is the next step of this acquisition process? And what would be the timelines for that?
I guess it goes through the new director of the department in communication with Green Acres program, that the township, they get a copy of the contract. They know the township is moving forward to acquire that. They can start their appraisal reports. They start the surveys for engineering and all those kind of things to make sure everything, whatever inspections have to be done environmentally on the properties, and then that goes forward. Timeline could be long because sometimes it takes a while to get that approval through the state. Not just necessarily.
Yeah, I understand. It comes a time when the ball is in the state's hands and then they have to do their thing. But I do want to thank you guys. This is huge. This is huge. I'm calling it in my own mind. You want to call it this, that's fine. It's Gloucester Township Ecological Preserve. There was a bald eagle spotted this week. There was a coyote spotted last week. And, I don't want to get into how much land is still being developed. But I would like to ask if there's any council members here that feel that the preservation of 5% of our township is enough. Because that's the only thing that's been preserved so far. And, we don't need to get to the planning board about what is being developed and more apartments and more houses. And so the question I'm putting to council is, does anyone here agree that 5% is enough preserved open space?
I think if we have opportunities to acquire more, we should.
I agree.
But that's me speaking.
I understand. And I appreciate your support in that matter. I had a question regarding the GEMS landfill. I know I'm familiar with the solar panel field that's going to go in. I see construction vehicles up there now. Do they penetrate the cap of that thing? How do they secure those panels in place?
Just to my knowledge, that's been one of the biggest delays for them going forward. They had to satisfy that they were not going to penetrate the barrier that's been put on there. And that really slowed down, this has been in the works for many years, that really slowed down Sincarfa as the corporation that's moving forward with that. And I want to say got satisfaction of that, other state requirements, then it started to move quicker.
Do you have it? I mean, how do they do it? I mean,
It's, my understanding it's called a floating contact, and I guess it's based on weighted down cement. It just sits on top of the cap.
do you have any idea what percent of the surface area of the landfill is going to be covered with panels?
I don't know. I think the majority of the panels are actually not on the landfill itself. They're in the areas around the landfill.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, there's considerable land that is not
Right.
part of that,
Right.
that cap.
Okay.
In fact, I don't even believe, to be honest with you, that anything's going on the cap. It's going on around the area.
Yeah.
That's the depictions I saw, Tom. It was more towards the bottom along the base.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked the other day. There's a little cul-de-sac that kind of winds in there and comes back out again. And there's some brand new homes being constructed in the shadow of a Superfund site. I'm thinking, do these people who are going to buy these homes, do they know what is in their backyard? It's crazy. It's, I don't know, just talking out loud. You wouldn't catch me building a house there. I don't care what the surveys say and the reports that come out every year about, seepage and what's there, and it was kind of shocking. But thank you for your support and preserving this open space. It really is critical.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Is there anyone else? Ms. Shaughnessy.
Good evening. My name is Shaughnessy Smithman. I live in Millbridge Gardens Apartments. Good evening. It's in Gloucester Township. Postal zip code is through Clementon, the city of Clementon, New Jersey. I noticed last year was a very large bird. I'm not sure if it was a hawk or a vulture, but it was very large. It resided within Gloucester Township towards Blackwood Clementon Road, just off of Laurel. It had a very large nest in the tree. It went over into the telephone wires and the power lines. Towards the end of summer, I noticed that it was taken down when they were trimming the trees. They took down this nest. It was a massive, beautifully built nest. I could not have built one myself as well as this bird built it. It had to be almost 8 feet around in a circle in the tree. I saw the bird later while walking. It was near a barn. It didn't have a home any longer. It was eating the food in the street, and then when the car came in, it flew away. That's why I noticed it. To preserve space, if we could possibly combine the environmental people that Mr. Burns suggested to save the environment, possibly seeing if we could assist this bird to build a home and possibly also use the land to possibly bury stillborn children that are born either in the area of Gloucester Township or the entire state of New Jersey. Because as I had mentioned previously, there is no law that I'm aware of what to do when a stillborn child is born. I don't even know if it is technically called born. If a stillborn child of any state of gestation comes out of the body, if it looks even similar, if it's recognizable as a child, the police department will investigate. And it's painful for everyone. It's painful for the people that discovered it. It's painful for the people that it happened to. It has to be. Every time I think of it, and I can notice by the reaction, nobody wants to think about it. I was told that at one of these city council meetings that Millbridge Gardens Apartment is one of the largest taxpayers in Gloucester County or Gloucester Township. Everybody was very pleased about that. You're not permitted to bury anything in Millbridge Gardens Apartments, Gloucester Township, within Gloucester Township. If you rent a home, you couldn't, there's nothing to do with it, and it's heartbreaking. If we could, one, acknowledge that these things happen, assist the police in acknowledging it happens, give people a place to bring it to them, and possibly combine the use of the land as some type of memorial, burial. I don't even know, because a stillborn child wouldn't be given a social security number. It wouldn't be covered by insurance, not the burial. I wouldn't even know how to begin to go about that process. If you're underage and it happens, unless there's a diagnosis of pregnancy, there's nothing to cover it. I was pregnant as a teenager. My mother's insurance would not cover the birth of the child. It would cover my health care as a pregnant person underage, but it would not cover the birth. It wouldn't cover the birth or anything after. No matter what age you were, I wouldn't think of something like this that would occur. Now we have a bird that's homeless, and we have people that didn't get a chance to take a breath yet. Is that something that the city council would be willing to consider?
Chauncey, you had asked, when you made a statement that that there wasn't a reaction, I guess, from this body. We had brought it up at our last council meeting. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. That's a lot to digest that you provided to me and my colleagues.
There are some townships that
that provide burial sites for stillborn children and animals, birds in the same location. So I need some time to grasp and think what you're saying here. I'm going to be quite frank with you. I don't know if there are parcels of land that we could dedicate for that. To be quite honest with you, I don't know if it's that within our purview as a township to provide this. But that's something that I think I have to reflect upon and my colleagues on council.
If I could ask a question, are you talking about possibly teenagers or adults that didn't know they were pregnant and they give birth and they don't go to the hospital?
That's correct. From what I understand, a stillborn child, if the pregnancy did not present in the womb, it would be undiagnosed. The pregnancy would be undiagnosed. That's how I feel about it. I don't know because it hasn't happened to me. And after a lot of treatment, I'm sure, for different ailments, depression, infection, infestation, tumor, cancers, or behavioral issues, from the hormonal changes and the things going on within the body and the undiagnosis of what it actually is, the body would, I would think, try to secrete it, and it would years after. The trauma that somebody would go through when something like that occurs. I'm trying to find an insight of what would council want to do. So what do you want the citizens within this township to do? The state of New Jersey is very vast. We have a lot of people that are new to the country side of living, if they come from the city, and they're also be new to the entire country. They may not have land or know people or know who to ask. And being someone whose parents and their parents and their parents were born in this country, we don't have an answer. I don't have an answer to give somebody. I don't know what to tell myself, and I wouldn't know what to do. And then when I think of the police force, what they must go through, the detectives, if something like that is discovered. Maybe we could prevent the anguish of something that was just traumatizing in somebody that did not know what to do versus somebody that did something harsh, something not out of not knowing what to do. I'm just looking for the insight of what we could, what is the Gloucester Township willing to work to look towards in something like this. It can be a state thing. You could, like I said, try to utilize the funds for both a new home for the bird and the ground that is used might be able to serve for something as a burial process. I don't know what the hospitals do if it's handed over. I don't know what people do. I don't know if local funeral parlors would accept something like that. Would they be allowed to without going through the jurisdiction of a police and what is the people that pronounce whether something is deceased or not?
Coroner.
I don't.
So these are things that, we have to reflect upon, and I thank you for your comments. Unfortunately, your time is up, and hopefully maybe we can provide some comments to you at our next meeting. Okay?
The first email that you had received from the first gentleman, if you could also check the township that he lives in. This is Camden County,
Well,
Gloucester Township.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr. Krug?
Evening, Council. Paul Krug. I think Ms. Shaughnessy does have a point. Maybe I may be reading in between the lines, but certainly stillborn and miscarried children is a topic that's undereducated and spoken about in society. And like you during the last meeting, I was a bit unsure if she was at the right forum or what could be done to address the situation. But at the end of last year, beginning of this year, I was cleaning out my portfolio, my folder that I keep for these meetings, and I had come across a council meeting agenda for September 27th of 21, where I noticed that there was a proclamation for childhood cancer awareness. So maybe a potential solution for Ms. Shaughnessy's recommendation is that we would have a proclamation for awareness surrounding stillborn and miscarried children, and that would help bring some light to the community. Just sitting here, Brian, I know you thanked council for their work towards additional open space, and I thank council and everyone involved in that as well. But Brian, I really just wanted to take a moment to thank you, being a citizen who tries to interact with his representatives. It's been inspiring, and I have a lot of admiration for what you've been able to accomplish with this body, and I continue to support additional open space for this township. So thank you, Brian. Thank you for being here, and thank you, council.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Heimball?
Behind Baltimore Star Court, just a couple quick little questions. As I was going through some meeting minutes of the EDC, I saw there was a lot of conversation about the purchase of a gas station property on 116 South Black Horse Pike. I wonder, my question is, is there any status on the purchase agreement or
That was languishing out there for quite some time. And
There was back and forth with the owner, township, changes and modifications. But last thing to say, we're not selling. I don't know where it's going.
I think what may have stalled that was the requirement for environmental, I think it's phase 1 on that one, but the owner did not want to subject themselves to that environmental.
You're correct.
So there would be some remediation to that property if it.
No, not necessarily.
Depending on how, it being a gas station, you normally as a purchaser, do a phase one to determine if there's any issues. The code in New Jersey says if you don't do phase one and there are issues, you could expose yourself to the liability. If you do it and it comes clear and then there's still problems, then the new owner does not have that responsibility. So you have to do that phase one. They didn't want to participate.
Okay, thank you. One last question. I did submit an Oprah request for the MPP budget. And I did see there was a budget submitted, an MPP budget submitted along with the application, but I assume that was just some kind of a preliminary budget. Anyway, I didn't receive a response to my Oprah with the statement that the budget has not yet been compiled. So I guess that's still being worked on, the budget for the MPP. That's still being pulled together by the committee. And
It is, and I believe what we provided, and I provided Paul copies of it, was the actual boundaries of the approved MPP area, the Blackwood area. So I think you have extra copies there. If you have one for
I haven't, I've had the application, which has a lot of maps and everything on it.
so we are still working through some other.
Okay. I would like to volunteer my services to that group and that committee as designated sort of the NPP budget clerk, for lack of a better term, where I would be able to compile and track the budget after it's been formulated. I would report to the MPP coordinator and only work as she would direct. I wouldn't just be a rogue entity. I would only work under the direction of the coordinator. So I just want to volunteer my services for the MPP. I like the program. I'm rooting for its success, and so I would like to volunteer. Thank you.
I'll forward your interest to the group. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the second public portion. Polling of directors.
Mr.
I
Carpenter,
have nothing to report.
Mr. Curtis,
Welcome to the report.
Chief Harkins,
It's our last call for our Citizens Police Academy, which starts January 20th. So anyone that's interested in attending, we have a good class forming. Just see Officer McLaughlin, our Community Relations Bureau. It'll run through several weeks and should be a good time for anyone to learn about the police department and how we function. And you also get CPR certified as a result of that. So thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chava,
Nothing to report.
Mr. Hutchison,
Thank you very much for coming out this evening, and the comments were listened to and the requests were listened to.
Mr. Munir,
Thank you all for coming. Please be safe going home.
Mrs. Winters,
I want to thank everyone for coming out. Mr. Burns, thank you for your work. It is appreciated. And please, everyone, be safe. It's scary out there, but take care of yourselves.
Mrs. Strato,
Thank you for coming out. Be safe, stay warm, and have a good week.
Mr. Mercado.
I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. Normally, on the third Monday in January, we commemorate Martin Luther King by having a day of service here in the township. Last year, we had to cancel that due to the pandemic, and this year, we're not running that program again. That program generates about 800 people that participate in 30-plus activities throughout the township, service projects. I, again, made that decision that I was not comfortable in having 800 people at C.W. Lewis School at the kickoff ceremony and doing those particular projects. So it is my hope that next year we could return to that again. So I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening, and take a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Yeah, man,